up. Blackness aye. Who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, I do it for the love, him not do it for no money. Straight up, him attack, educating everybody. Big up my friends and big up my family. Turn on the radio, catch the vibes, it's integrity. Straight up, Benskop stands for unity. One people, one nation, one destiny. Free up the truth in the air, even the blind can see. The deaf can hear, the dumb can talk, the cripple can walk. Boom. Who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, we have to gather round, grab a seat and sit down, pay attention. Education, liberation, we have to stand strong. Benskop upon the radio, lively up the program. Everybody call somebody and let them turn and tune and pon the radio and catch the boom song. We boom it up already, we have to boom it up again. Expose and reveal him. Who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, I do it for the love, him not do it.
Sanko licky love up on the dam and the gala holla murder. Sanko licky love up on the dam and the gala holla murder.
Police are come and the gala holla murder. Police are come and the gala holla murder. Sanko kissy love up on the dam and the gala holla murder. Sanko kissy love up on the dam and the gala holla murder. Police are come and the gala holla murder. Police are come and the gala holla murder. Sanko boy, you better run. Sanko boy, police are come. Sanko boy, you better run. Sanko boy, policeman are come.
Sanko chase the love up on the dam and the gala holla murder. Sanko Chessy love up on the dam and the gala holla murder.
Bip, bop, police are come and the gala holla murder. Bip, bop, police are come and the gala holla murder. Sanko catchy love up on the dam and the gala holla murder. Sanko catchy love up on the dam and the gala holla murder. Bip, bop, police are come and the gala holla murder. Bip, bop, police are come and the gala holla murder. Sanko boy, you better run. Sanko boy, police are come. Sanko boy, you better run. Sanko boy, policeman are come.
Sanko squeezy love up on the dam and the gala holla murder. Sanko squeezy love up on the dam and the gala holla murder.
Bip, bop, police are come and the gala holla murder. Bip, bop, police are come and the gala holla murder. Sanko leffy love up on the dam and the gala holla murder. Sanko leffy love up on the dam and the gala holla murder. Bip, bop, police are come and the gala holla murder. Bip, bop, police are come and the gala holla murder. Sanko boy,
You better run.
Sanko boy, police are come. Sanko boy, you better run. Sanko boy, policeman are come. Sanko,
You better run.
Sanko,
Police are come.
Sanko,
You better run.
Sanko.
Police are come.
Yes, my name is Jasniti Kaldata Francis Vietnam, and since 1965 I become a voter, and I always place my ex next to the cup, and what they are doing today, I can't take it. So I have no more vote to give to PPP anymore. I'm not going to vote anymore no more. If they have to lose by one vote, they're losing it by data. I have none.
And you're confident that you're going to deliver credible and fair elections?
Of course. Only one way I know.
Hello, this is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.
All right. Good evening. My name is Mark.
This is attorney Shellen.
Lemon just wanted to do that twice again, right? All right. So good evening to all of you. I am Mark Benchap, and welcome to Straight Up. We're a little late this evening. No fault of mine. Blame my makeup artists. They were just busy doing their stuff, because I'm not like one of those Facebook show hosts or talk show hosts who pretend. I don't pretend. I do have a makeup artist. They just got to do their stuff, and that's how I look. That's how I'm looking. Can't stop me, right? All right, 12 minutes after 9 o'clock. My name is Mark Benchap. Welcome to Straight Up. We're going to rock and roll this evening. I promise you, we're just going to go maybe 2 minutes over 10 o'clock hours. 2 minutes, nothing over that. We got some serious business to take care of. Thank you so much for sharing the link. Let's get right down into business. We just take a quick scan. Do we have any trench grapple? Because we do have a trench grapple alert. And whenever there's a trench grapple on the program misbehaving, we have a trench grapple alert. The alert we do have, but let's get straight down into business. We have Lincoln Lewis with us this evening. Thank you so much, Lemon, for ensuring Lincoln is on with us this evening, ready to rock and roll. Later on, we'll be joined by Wayne Caesar. But let's begin. Let's begin to rock and roll here. Lincoln Lewis, veteran trade unionist. Good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, Mark. Good evening, viewers. Good evening, friends, comrades.
Friends and comrades and everything. Let's get straight. Let's have dinner tonight. We take a look at this here. Wow. So once there's food, Sam Hines is there. Wherever there's food, Sam Hines is there. But I want to touch on first, because it is troubling. It ought to be troubling. Not because there's food there and Sam Hines look vexed that he's not getting food, but look at the facial expression of Jerry Govaya. I don't know, he's vexed about something, but outside of that, here's my question. I need for you to answer that. Why is the Army Chief of Staff all the way down at the end? They put him all the way down at the end. Why is the Army Chief of Staff in political meetings overseas? Why, Mr. Lewis? Why?
I'm trying to basically to understand the reason for him to be a part of that delegation. I'm taken back, very much taken back, or they must have some reason. I don't know the reason why. It's only them can answer it. But what worries me, what in the first place they're doing in Washington, what they're doing there. You know, the things that they started, the reason they are giving for going to Washington is to debunk what is being said or what is supposed to be said at a conference sometime 2 weeks down the road. How is it that you know what will happen at the conference? What will happen at the conference? How can you adequately warrant in any way that they know what will happen, what will be the conclusion of that conference, and you are going up front to debunk something? What are you debunking? The only way you can know by being given an indication is if you're guilty. And I believe that there is something that is definitely wrong in the heads of these guys. Jerry Govaya, I'm disappointed, but I shouldn't be. I believe Mr. Todd here, even him, I'm disappointed in. You know.
Well, no, but Lincoln, why should we be disappointed in these guys? Todd is basically there to drink soup. Jerry Govaya hangs just like he hangs wherever his hat goes, he hangs his hat. Gregory Meeks, Congressman Gregory Meeks is a PPP sympathizer since back in the days with Ed Ahmad and those guys. These guys don't care about anything. It's just business people. They're just, look at on age one, business, they're just basically hustlers. And again, I go back to the brigadier of the chief of staff going around in political meetings. I could understand if there's a conference to deal with anything military, I can understand. But he's being dragged along all over the place, political meetings. The opposition, these are things the opposition need to be. And then when I talk about the opposition, somebody bomb's going to raise up there and they're going to start open up their mouth. Mark is always with the opposition. But these are things that the opposition should be exposing. Why is the chief of staff of the Guyana Defense Force tagged along, walking along in political meetings or whatever you want to call it in Washington, D.C.? It's not a military conference. It's political meetings. Shame and disgrace to the military.
You know what they're doing? They're conforming the allegations that are being made against them, the charges that are being made against them. They're conforming to everything. That the army carry out the instructions of the government, the instructions of the PPP. And so do the police force and so on. They are doing that. What they're conforming, because if this is where they're going to debunk the allegations of discrimination made against them, that they're discriminating against a specific group in society. What the hell the army
Lincoln, we
is
see
there
it
about?
every day. We see it every day. Racial discrimination, political discrimination, all manner of things. Every single thing. It's happening. It is not just an overnight something. These people in Washington, D.C. have been hearing for lots of folks, lots of groups, individuals who call their congressmen, call their congresswoman, call their senators, and say to them things are not regular in Guyana, serious human rights violations, and all manner of things. People in Guyana are getting tired and tired and tired, Lincoln.
I don't believe that these guys understand that the newspapers, what is carried in the dailies here, are being looked at by other groups outside of Guyana. Like the ambassador that just demitted office. She said at one point recently, she said that there must be engagement between the government and the opposition. There must be engagement. They must be able to come to the table. But these guys walking around, even in the United States, they're going now to tell people that they are involved in inclusionary democracy. They are including people in decision making. What these guys believe? They believe that people don't have sense. I am startled at the intelligence of this group who purportedly representing.
They have no intelligence. Absolutely none. And I don't know who they're fooling. Absolutely not. Things have been happening for the longest while. But you know what is embarrassing and an insulting intelligence of Guyanese, right-thinking Guyanese, is that the former U.S. ambassador, so she should be out of the country now, is saying that she wants talks right now. Why wait until you are out the door to call for talks? Why wait until then? You had 3+ years since these people were installed to have to initiate that discussion. For the most part, opposition was cut out of any sort of discussions with Sarah Ann Lynch. None whatsoever. Now suddenly, oh, you want talks and they must get to the table. Give me a break. Wayne Caesar, how are you?
Good evening, Mark. I'm doing fine. Good evening, Mr. Lewis, and good evening to all the listeners and viewers, the freedom fighters out there. Good evening to all of you guys.
Yeah, let's touch first of all, what is your take with a plethora of evidence against these individuals who are in DC, visiting there, racial discrimination in Guyana throughout the country. It has been happening for years now. So this is nothing new. It is nothing that they're afraid of what's going to be exposed, or what's going to be exposed is nothing new. These people already know how the PPP governs. Their discrimination, racial discrimination, political persecution. Mr. Caesar, your take on these vagabonds in DC.
Well, listen, Mark, sitting at that table there is a set of crooks. Starting with Mr. Jerry Govaya, I'm going to start there, and then I'm going to go right down the line. Listen, when you look at these guys, and you can't call one side to the table, Mark. I disagree with that. I think both parties needed to be there, so that they could have had this discussion. Because if you have one side without the other, you know what's going to happen. Right? That side is going to be defending themselves and trying to really control the narrative, with what they say, hey, the guys at the table does not represent the people of Guyana, right? So if they don't represent the people of Guyana, you would never get the truth of what is happening in Guyana. All right? These guys represent foreign interests and business interests. When it comes to the people, they are non-existent. So, and Gregory Meeks being in that meeting, Mark, already, tarnishes the whole thing. That's a farce right there. That's something to put out there to say, well, hey, look, we are meeting and this is what the government is saying. You know, but that's just not good enough because you don't have the opposition at the table. So if you don't have the opposition at the table, how are you going to be able to decipher who's telling the truth and who's not telling the truth when there's only one set of people you have sitting at the table? So, Mark, this is utter nonsense. This shouldn't be called, you know, it's ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make any sense. It's ridiculous. Lincoln Lewis, you heard there from Wayne Caesar. Look at the face. I'm looking at Jerry go, what's wrong with Jerry? Jerry upset. Sam Hines hungry. Todd studying some sort of deal. Ed Meeks studying money. Onej Waldron is impressed. I see she looking at it. Gregory Meeks. Okay. So what do you think? Because Lincoln, it's not like these politicians in the U.S. in Washington D.C. don't know these vagabonds there. What's going through their minds when these people meet with these vagabonds from Guyana? You think they're fooling them about anything?
I don't believe at any point that they have been able to fool anyone. They are going to come out there. Let me tell you about these guys. These guys are going to walk barefacedly, and they are going to put a spin on the meeting that never existed. That's how the PPP behave, right? The bare face. They will come out there and say some things that never transpired, or whatever the conclusions of that meeting may be. They will say the opposite to it. They are good spin doctors. They are going to fool some people, but they're not going to fool everybody in this case. These guys have to be told in no uncertain terms. Next 2 weeks, when civil society leaders gather in Washington to talk, they got to be bold and speak it as it is. I don't know why they run there before. They will have no chance to rebut what's going to happen next 2 weeks. They have already run in and said, look here, these are what the people will say. This is our position on what they're coming to say. That means that to a very large extent, you're part and parcel of the problem. You're looking for somebody to cry to, but I believe you've gone to the wrong pew at this time. People know the politicians in Washington have been reading the paper. The staff have been reading the newspaper. You made reference about the U.S. ambassador, what you said. Let me tell you something. The U.S. ambassador will not say, the U.S. ambassador represents the interests of the United States. If the U.S. ambassador changes or tunes, that means that the instructions are you need to change course. You need to, this is not what she says. This is what the United States is saying. Because what she says represents the views of the United States government. So when they said to the country that there must be dialogue. That is the position of the United States government, is not position of Sierra Leone. You think about it. It's not our position. Those things that Sierra Leone did, or she may have said, in 2020, 21, 2020, when we perceived that she went overboard, she didn't go overboard by herself. It is the U.S. government position she was championing. Was U.S. government look after U.S. interests? And if what is happening now is not in the interest of the U.S. government, then the tune will change. And that is what has happened here when she said that there must be dialogue. The tune change. The tune change, so you got to be new dance. And the new dance taking place now.
You speak about new dance. I saw for a moment Mr. Caesar, eyes open up big. You hear about dance. You think it's probably dance on Pleasance lined up. But the dance that Lincoln Lewis is talking about is the political dance. Before we get back to Mr. Caesar, let me just bring to your attention, all of you guys, the propaganda. This is what they're using the Guyana Chronicle to do. An entity that is spent hundreds of millions of taxpayers' dollars to do political campaign work. This, what we're looking at here, is shameful. Not because Gregory Meeks is in the picture again with Irfan Ali and pomposetting themselves with some members of the Black Caucus. No, but because they're using all day. That is what we're seeing on the Chronicle online. All single day, a waste of taxpayers' monies. Over to you, Wayne.
Well, Mark, that is absolutely the case here. And listen, the members of the Black Caucus that would have sat in this meeting today, I hope they don't just walk away with what was said in this meeting, that they would do some further investigation. And I would even take it as far as saying they can plan and delegate a trip down to Guyana to really feel what it is like on the ground in Guyana, to feel the poverty that the people of Guyana is living in. While this country that they live in.
I hope they don't go with Gregory Meeks, because as he was caught with prostitutes in Colombia, these guys, prostitutes follow some of them. But sorry, Mr. Caesar, continue. I hope they don't go to Guyana.
Well, listen, Mark, that these guys dibble and dabble in all the nastiness, whether it's corruption, whether it's prostitution, whatever it is, man. They know themselves, they know what they do, but still they're allowed to walk across the floor of the house, and act as if they're more holy than righteous. And this is what's wrong with our world today, because people are looking, and the things that should be wrong, they are looking it in the face and calling it right. And the righteous is what they're calling wrong. And that's the problem here. And that's the problem with this government, this installed government that is in place in Guyana, especially when it comes to the international community. They are looking at this installed government and saying that, it's the government of Guyana. But I personally, feel and will always feel that this government is an installed government and it's not a legal government.
We all feel that way. They're installed again, but this is a waste of taxpayers' monies, Mr. Caesar. A waste of taxpayers' monies. Hundreds of millions of dollars.
Well, Mark, listen, the government has been spending recklessly from the beginning. They have not stopped. Okay, they have no regards for the taxpayers of Guyana. They have no regards to the funds that are there. The people are already struggling, Mark, and then to have to pay taxes and to watch the taxes not go into building the roads and the streets that they need and the proper infrastructure, post office services, passport services that the coalition so, diligently did in their short stint, without an oil economy. This government has all this money at their disposal and they're just wasting it. They're just sporting. Everybody's traveling to China. Everybody's traveling to the US every minute, and they're all, Mark, you know what? Yeah. They're always in Washington. But when they are summoned to Washington, Mark, I am forced to believe it's not, anything concerning the bidding of the people in Guyana. The people in Guyana are totally ignored. First of all, they look at them as a small sample of people. It's less than 1 million people. Who cares? It's all about the money.
Absolutely. All about the money. 32
minutes. Let me just make this point, Mark. Let me just make this point.
Go ahead, sir. Yeah.
These guys, they believe that people are stupid. They want to tell you, or they go to the United States to tell people about inclusionary democracy and how you get the citizenry to participate. There's a society where people are crying out for discrimination. Do they call the people who are crying out for discrimination, that they're discriminating against us? Let's sit and talk. What are the issues? How can we resolve them? They don't do that. What they do is, the moment somebody raises a concern, they say that person is sour grape. That person is a representative or supporter of the coalition. They are mad with the government. So you don't have a right, even if you're a supporter of another political group, to raise the issue as it relates to discrimination in the society, if you feel you're discriminated, right? These are things that worries me. Who they believe that they're fooling? Every time these issues of discrimination are raised, they dismiss them by either attacking the individual or being dismissive of the individual. We have to take note of that. And they believe that they can go to Washington and tell the folks in Washington that everything is on Kedorido. Everything is nice. There's no need for anybody to complain. There's something is wrong with them. It's only dictators behave like that, you know. A dictator will never see. A dictator will never accept that he's a dictator. A man who has all this criminal propensity will not ever accept that he's a criminal. We have a problem, and we need to address it.
Serious problem indeed. Lots and lots of problems they have. The people of Guyana are exposing the PPP regime. They're standing up every day. There are individuals over here exposing them, whether on social media or wherever. The PPP is in serious trouble at this point in time. Lincoln, your take on the waste of taxpayers' money all day. Hundreds of millions of dollars spent on this rag, this washcloth called Guyana Chronicle. All day, that's what we're seeing. Propaganda.
Let me just make the point, Mark. You see how these guys, they can't see that they're discriminated. They will come to raise a question about what is being said on your program. They listen to it. It's another view beside the views that are expressed by their supporters or by the courts. They learn from it. But they will not give you an ad. They will not give you an ad. But they give you a license for your radio. And they will ask you to pay up that license when the year comes. The state funds, the state ads, go to their friends and the courts. How they expect you to pay, Ben's Cup Radio to pay for that license when the year comes, when you deny the radio station ads. That's discrimination. And they can't see that. They're so steep in their stupidity that they can't see that they're discriminating against Ben's Cup Radio. They are discriminating against Village Voice. They are discriminating against any program that raises an alternative view. But they can't understand that what they're doing is wrong. It tells you where they are, how steep they are in their stupidity. But they will go to Washington to try to tell people we're not discriminating.
Well, they can't, but let me just reveal to the public that I wrote as the owner of 107.1 FM, and I'm glad that you mentioned that, given a radio license to operate a radio station in Guyana and being discriminated by this current installed regime with the disbursement of ads. I personally took that time out to write to the U.S. Black Caucus to outline the discrimination from a personal standpoint, the discrimination And of course, I mentioned the discrimination against the Village Voice as well, about what's happening in Guyana. And I will also write to the United Nations to talk about this blatant discrimination. You're right. They don't see it as discrimination. They don't care. And this is why we've got to stand up and confront them at every legal means necessary. Mr. Caesar?
Mark, how can they see it as discrimination when they were installed by some of the larger economies, some of the most powerful countries around the world? They will never see that as discrimination. Why? Because the people that would have installed them doesn't see discrimination in Guyana, right? They don't. If they did, they would have interceded a long time ago, right? And that's what I've been trying to say all the time. This is upon the people of Guyana. There's no external forces, Mark, that is going to come to their aid. That's why it's very, very important that our people are educated and edified by the time the 2025 elections. Mark, we're within 2 years now. It's September 15th. We're within 2 years of the next general and regional elections. You know, so we need to see some movement when it comes to the edification of the people. We know what the government is doing, Mark. We know what this installed government is doing and has been doing. But we've got to start figuring out methods of how to combat this government, you know, how to remove this government, vote this government out of power. That's the ultimate solution that we should be looking for. You know, we can come on every night and we can speak on issues and things that this government is doing wrong, but we need to get out there and we need to protest. We need to put this government in check. And we need to let them know that we understand what they're doing and we understand what is going on. You know, myself, you, and Mr. Lewis, we can sit here, but it's the people who have to show that they understand what's happening and they want change.
Absolutely. Okay. Let's head to Mr. Lewis, if we get your take on this here. You being a veteran trade unionist, a man who has been doing what you are doing. You have been doing it for decades. Take a look at this, please, and let's get your take on it, sir. The cane harvesters, no money, no work, several protests, and then 16 sugar workers among 20 persons charged with unlawful acts during protests. And one of those charges happened to be, guess what? Terrorism charge. As Wayne Caesar would say, over to you, Mr. Lewis, over to you.
I want to tell you, you know, it is not surprising. The PPP believe that sugar workers, they own sugar workers. And whatever they tell them to do, they must do it. And this on one occasion that the sugar workers have challenged them. And they intend to use and what they have done is to use the arm of the state to suppress a legitimate act of demanding that they be heard. It's not surprising that the government has done so, has responded in the way they responded. It is wrong, and they must be told under no uncertain terms that what they're doing is inimical to the interests of workers in this country. Let me just take you back. If you remember in 2009, When bauxite workers at Rusal, BCGI struck, when the management told them, if you don't want, we are saying that this is what we will pay, and if you don't want it, you go home. And the workers walk off the job. Mansour Nadir was the Minister of Labor. Mansour Nadir, when asked by the media what is he going to do, he said leave it until after Christmas. And he blaming the union without talking with the union. And for the period they have been out there, that impasse was allowed to drag on. They decided that they're going to talk with the union. Jacques Dio went to Everton and he tell the people, don't worry, Louis and others. He can give them money, like his money get in the pocket. They take redundancy and offer them a number of the thing, form themselves into a what you call a committee and a workers' committee, and he will engage them. You know all the things then that they promised these people at Kokwani and Everton, they never materialized. They came with Linden, they did the same thing. That's how these guys behave. But when they did that, let me take you down. People like Cameron Ramsey and Robert Corbyn came out in support of us. But there were a number of persons who decide that they're going to remain silent. Even political operatives. You see today where it comes? Me to the point where this government is so barefaced, the opposition has. Half of the people in this country who vote for the electorate based for the opposition, based on GCOM declaration. Say half of them vote for it. And they're saying to the opposition, we will not speak with you. They have not stopped there. They now meet to the point. They are so emboldened that GAU, which is the industrial arm of the PPP, you know, by virtue of the PPP constitution, GAU has a seat on the central committee of the party. Even that union had been muzzled to the point where we can't come out on behalf of these workers in defense of them. I hope you understand. I hope all of them understand that the Alibongo family, how many years they were in power? 50 something. They are amassing wealth like them. They are doing the same things. I hope when people take things in their own hands, those foreign powers that remain silent right now will not come out to condemn. But let me make this point. It is not because it's sugar workers. They have been using the act to do a number of things. You open your mouth now, you're being charged for this, you're being charged for that. Up there, when the turn come around, they will be able to withstand the charges. But this can only happen if together as citizens, we seek to hold these vagabonds accountable. Mark, let me tell you what. One of the men who in that group is who were charged there is my cousin. We share a common bloodline. It hurts me. So the question here is not only because of the sugar worker, but I have a personal interest in what's taking place. We have to come back we as a people, got to bring this country back on course. When Ali had his 19 fraud charges and Nandalal had his charge for the law books, they fought every tooth and nail every day to make sure that they don't go to trial. And when the GCOM declare an election and put them in a safe area, they sought to put measures in place to have the charges dropped against them. Let me tell you something. Nobody is more equal than the other one. All of us are equal in this society. So when Nandalal and them talking about law and equality in the system, they're not speaking to us. The sugar workers, we must all come out in sympathy with them and not only stand up, not only talk about it. We should be in front of the court there with them. And if possible, we should organize and galvanize a program against this government for taking advantage of poor workers. Yesterday, you had the teachers sick out at in the which branch? The Kanji branch of the GTU. They sick out. This morning you see in the paper that the government is going to raise some teachers' pay. Who the hell they believe they are? They're not prepared to sit down and do collective bargaining with anybody or any union that challenges their autocracy. They don't believe in laws. And because they don't believe in laws, it will come a time that we will have to renounce denounce the government as a terrorist government.
You know, I like that point. I liked Lincoln. Sorry, sir. I like that point. Let us hope this time around that people are not going to get upset with you and say that it's too harsh. I say that to say because many years ago, for the first time in Guyana, we heard this description of a regime. You said that the PPP regime was committing economic genocide. Now in 2020, and I agree with you, economic genocide then, economic genocide now, but this PPP regime should be described as a terrorist organization. Some might say that's a bit stretching it a little too much. Terrorist organization. I agree with you, but some may not agree with you, sir.
I don't expect many to agree with me, but I'm making the point that if a government that is there to govern within the purview of the laws, the constitution and laws of this land, they are prepared to ignore them, these instruments, ignore them, and to do as they like. They gone rogue. You gotta be terrorists. It's only terrorists don't respect laws. And terrorism don't necessarily mean a group of individuals or individuals fighting a government. It means also a government fighting its people, oppressing its people. And in this case, that's what they're doing. They are oppressing us. They decide that the monies from the oil and gas belong to them and the courts. We can ask for it. They decide if you're going to get any, not by consent.
And so forth. I have another question for you, Lincoln, before we go to Wayne Caesar, who may have a question for you as well. But my question for you now, sir, is look at this. Government allows Exxon to slash US 214 million in questionable costs down to US 3 million. So in other words, Exxon owes taxpayers of Guyana $214 million. And these pacus in the PPP said, no. Only pay us 3 million US dollars. Your take, sir, on this gross disrespect and unpatriotic act by the corrupt PPP.
Let me just argue back. During the coalition government, GRA went after, what's his name? BCGI, when they were about to ship some trucks out of this heavy equipment out of this country. And they tell them they got to pay taxes. They got to pay some taxes. And they didn't go so far, they didn't stop there. They went on to say there are people coming to this country on a certain condition who are not paying taxes. Under the law, they have to pay. I am sure that during that period, the GRA staff stood up. I'm sure about one thing, that when the government changed, those things were, instructions were given to throw those things aside. Taxes for this government mean that we, the small man, must pay taxes. And the people who make billions, it's not only Exxon. This private sector getting away, some people private sector getting away with not paying taxes. And what they're doing with Exxon, let me tell you something. It shows the double standards. These are the people who tell you, when they want to be elected in office, you vote for me. I want to renegotiate the contract. And when you come back, when they elected to office, they come back to you and tell you the contract cannot be renegotiated. I am not surprised at the write-down that the papers are talking about. These are a bunch of brigands. They're a bunch of rogues. They're rascals. They're vagabonds.
They're criminals.
They're buccaneers.
They're jagabats.
They don't care. But the resolution to all of this rests in our hands. We have to come out in the streets. We have to come to the streets. The women got to come out in the streets and the men got to join them. I urge the women, you have to come out. Come out with your empty pots. That you can't buy food at the supermarket to cook in them. Let's start the process and the men join them.
While they were in Washington, D.C., 5,000 supporters of the opposition and right-thinking Guyanese should have been on the streets. And let those politicians in D.C. know 10,000 people in the streets. That's what the opposition should have done to bring the people out. Today and yesterday and tomorrow into the streets of Georgia.
David Gadiam, let me tell you something.
Yes, sir.
Why would I be surprised that when you meet next 2 weeks, when civil society meet, the PPP has a war chest with money from all walks of life. They even pay people from here to fly them to New York to go and pick it.
Well, that's because the people in New York who are supposed to be doing that protest at these functions, especially the PNC groups, they're not doing anything, nothing whatsoever. Mr. Caesar, you have a question for Mr. Lewis, please?
I do have a question for Mr. Lewis, but if I may be allowed, I have a short statement I want to make. Because we were just talking about wealth. And I just want to give the people a good understanding of the meaning of what's going on right now. So right now in Guyana, we have one set of people that is capturing all the wealth. And, many people are sitting passive in their living rooms, you know, and who out there hanging out on the line top or whatever the case may be, sitting passively. You guys are not understanding the impact that this is going to have. It's going to impact us for centuries to come. We are going to be poor, and these people are going to be wealthy because what? There's an imbalance when it comes to the distribution of wealth, and we're not challenging it in any way or form, and we need to challenge it, or else, you know what? Our children, our grandchildren, and future generations are going to pay the price, you know, because they're just not going to be able to have proper sustainable lives because they don't have the finances to do so. But my question to Mr. Lewis, and Mark, you can add a little bit to this if you want to. Mr. Lewis is arguably one of the greatest trade unionists to ever walk the soil of Guyana. And he would have been a part of many protests, right? Also you, Mark, you're an activist. You've been an activist for many years. You've been a part of many protests. I have been seeing protests and, you know, and they're just not many people there. So what I would like to pose to you guys, what goes into planning a successful protest? That's the question I want to ask you guys, because you've been there, done that.
Mr. Lewis, take a bite of that as we look at the time, 59 minutes after 9 o'clock. I guess Mr. Caesar is probably not seeing the type of protest we've seen before. When you, as union leaders, you guys called out a heck of a lot of people in the 1997 and so forth. But go ahead, sir. It's Wayne's question to you.
Let me tell you what. I want to just take you back, not a short while ago. In 2009, let me give you an example. In 2009, the protests in this country eat it up. Oh, it eat it up. I remember sitting in a hotel room. I was doing some work with the MSR Trade Union. And I heard them saying that Mr. Norton from the PNC was on a program. They had just passed what you call the anti-terrorist bill. And he said that you cannot protest any longer. People will be locked up, they're killing protests and what have you. I remember well, I picked up the phone, I called Ben Scott. And I called Norris Witter. And then I called Freddie Kisu. And I told him what I heard. I said, let's challenge it. The office of the president was sacred ground. Nobody had ever protested the office of the president. And we went there. And we protest. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. We go to Roy office, we protest. We go to Henry Green office. The second time we got on, they lock us up. You know what it did? It was a challenge to the administration that we are not going to sit down and allow them to pass a piece of legislation that deter us. Every journey starts with the first step. I remember in 2009, we went in front of Parliament to picket. And there were parliamentarians who dressed in their suit. And when they couldn't go in, they were so annoyed that we're stopping them from going in. This thing requires all hands on deck. While leaders in civil society and the trade union can walk and protest, We want the political leaders who people vote for got to join this thing. When running up to the elections of the PNC in 2020, what? It was 2021. Yes. They were talking about boots on the ground. We're going to fight them. We had so much hope. When you talk to the society, talk to people in the communities, we're going to fight them. We're going to mash them down. Today, the opposition put nobody on the road. So many of those same persons become disillusioned. You got to understand what's happening in this society. The opposition, for civil society to be successful in what it's doing, it requires also the voice and support of the political operatives. We have to get that. At the end of time, these issues are political. And because they're political issues, you need political solutions. I am telling you, this thing can change. This thing can change, and it can change overnight. We have to march. We have to protest. And marching and protesting are guaranteed, those rights are guaranteed in the Constitution. If you want to know the ingredient, is giving people the confidence that you will be with them in the test of time as you move on. That's the ingredient. Don't worry the other things about what you're going to write down on paper, where you're going to go to tomorrow and so on, and what you need for it. If there's not the will, you can't will the way. And that's what is important.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Caesar.
5 minutes after 10 o'clock. It is a fact. I agree with you, Lincoln, that we're not seeing the proactive moves from the current opposition. It's just not there. There's not the fighting spirit at all. Some may argue otherwise, but the evidence is what it is. They just do not believe in boots on the ground. They just do not believe in proper confrontation, real confrontation to the PPP. Being proactive, it's just not there. Some of their supporters through NAR, whatever they call it, should have been in front of Meek's congressional office in Queens. They should be in front, those who are in Florida, in front of Marco Rubio's office. And those who are part of NAR or whatever in Washington, D.C. should have been about 20 or 50 of them in front of the Black Caucus, so that those representatives, those who are not aware as to what's happening in Guyana, would be asking, what are those people protesting out there for? And then they would have become even more curious to find out what is going on. We don't have a proper, and I agree with you, the opposition don't believe no boots on the ground. They just don't. And it's hurting a lot of people on the ground. Mr. Caesar, I know you've asked for me to, and I'll briefly respond to your question as to why people are not coming out. People are not going out in the streets because they're not seeing their leaders going out into the streets. People are not going out and protest because they believe their leaders do not want them to protest. People are not going out and protest because whenever there's a protest, it lasts for probably a day with a couple of people go out, a couple of the MPs go out, snap a quick selfie, put it on their Facebook pages, and that's the end of the protest. It is done with. I don't know what's happening in the country, but that country needs to be a real shake-up. A real shake-up. You know, you shake the cards up or you shake the dice and start all over again. Things are not working out for poor people. Whether that shake-up going to come elections time or whether it's going to come with mass protest. I believe in protest. Lincoln just mentioned that. One of the arrests in front of the Commissioner of Police office, we were protesting. We spent 3 nights in Brigham lockups, 3 nights on a filthy ground, eating out of a filthy bucket. Some may argue how much they want to argue. Some of the Nimakarams might say, oh, Mark is a PPP. We know those madmen who are uttering those words. They're madmen. That is all they say. They sit and they talk crap, garbage, run with a quick post on Facebook and think that that is sufficient. It is not sufficient. Mr. Caesar, we really have to go. Let me see what Mr. Lewis. Lincoln, on the ground, what's the mood like of the people, sir, as we prepare to go?
I will want to see the people rise up against the atrocities that are committed. We want a revolution, like the Velvet Revolution. There must be change. We want a change. Let me tell you, this is not tongue in cheek any longer. If there will be one election that I will be coming out and stand up and publicly fight, will be the next one. I have to fight. We all have to fight. What has happened here has never happened in this country before in my lifetime. And it will be a serious indictment on me to sit at the sideline and allow persons to continue doing the things that are being done now. Let me make this point. Let me make this point. The same venom and passion that I demonstrate now against this government. Any government in my lifetime that come to office and do the same thing, I'm going to turn on them. I'm not supporting any atrocity committed against citizens. So Bara Jagdio, Ali, and Nandalal and the whole group must understand very clearly. I'm putting them on notice that the next election, I go in the trenches against them.
Well,
we have to mobilize.
In the trench. And Lincoln,
when I say I'm going in the trenches, Mark, you will see my face every day. Hear my voice, even when you lie down in your bed.
I like that. You've been in the trenches. We understand what being in the trenches is, not sitting on some hammock, rocking away, doing nonsense or a quick Facebook post talking crap, as some people usually do. In the trenches, indeed. Shondell Griffith has made a point here. Shondell Griffith is saying, Mark, people not going out to protest because they're being victimized by this installed regime. We've all been victimized. Who cares? 5+ years in solitary confinement. I experienced that. Over 100 arrests. I've experienced that. All of the top charges, from treason to sedition to conspiracy to commit murder, you name it. They threw all the books at me. This very PPP regime. And I want some of those pacus out there, not you guys who are watching, some armchair so-called politicians who now jump on the so-called politicians, jump on the scene for God in heaven knows what. 5 years in solitary confinement. Treason charge, sedition charge, conspiracy to commit murder, all manner of things. Dozens of fake arrests for protest and these sort of things. So Shondell, people got to learn to be brave. Our political leaders got to learn to be brave. our politicians in the opposition got to be brave. They want sweet boy and sweet boy, sweet girl politics. It doesn't work. Sorry about that, Mr. Caesar, but your closing remarks, sir, please.
Mark, I am forced not to do a closing remark tonight because I cannot have a great like Mr. Lincoln Lewis here and not pose another question that I had up my sleeve for him. So I'm going to go ahead and pose that question as my closing remark. Now, Mr. Lewis, there have been a bit of instability with the largest party within the coalition, the PNCR. You know, certain leaks have come out from within the party. You've had some Indo members of the party that would have written letters and make them public. So a lot of matters that should have been taken care of internally end up being out there. So, you know, I want you to elaborate on that. And then I also want you to tell us how you would combat these type of internal issues within a party.
Let me first of all tell you, from the outset, I'm going to answer the last one. The first thing you have to do is to learn to manage conflict. Manage conflict. If you have somebody who expressing alternative views or even personal views about you, you don't seek to alienate that person. You keep that person as close as possible and you manage that person. We have to manage conflict. In our political climate, our politicians don't believe in managing conflict. They believe that when there's a conflict, whosoever may be the person that you perceive is contributing to that conflict, rather than seeking to work with that person or put them in strategic position that they work and report to you. What we seek to do is to alienate them. That's the problem in political parties. The first one, let me tell you that you ask. The PNC has promoted itself as a multi-ethnic party. And while you promote yourself as a multi-ethnic party, you have to be clear that when it comes to rights, rule of law, you have to be transparent. It's not who do what. It's what the rules say, what the law says. That is what will guide you. You know, let me give you an example of something that you may look. And it happens in the communities. You have two major communities here, which is the Indian and the African community. Don't run away from it. And I'm telling you the truth about it. The Indian community, even the leaders, regardless of which political party they look out when it comes to the issue of discrimination. They will stand up for the kit and kill. I see nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. Because at the end of time, they will have to, when they finish with politics, they got to go back in those same communities and live. So if they discriminate or they stay silent when people of their kind are being attacked, You're not comfortable. They can't go back now. But in the African community, is that when Africans are being attacked, a leader, for instance, Burke, Ben Scott on its radio, the evidence of what see on the radio, we all leave them to defend themselves. Rather than collectively we defend them. Maybe it's a cultural thing. So when you have what you're seeing with PMC, I'm saying you have to manage the conflict. You have to manage it. And secondly, all like the Indian group that is inside me, when what's his name? Ron Lane said something at the boxing line that they came out. And last week there was something with some child they came out. Let me tell you something. That is what makes the strength of a party. That is what strengthens a party. It strengthens the party because it is indicative that there is democracy inside the PNC. When Rice therefore came out against Ali and Jagyo, who came out accusing them of certain things of mismanagement or whatever, who came out against Rice Ford? Nobody but the Prime Minister Phillips. When we shout about the atrocities that are committed against the African community, not one member, minister, one African member of parliament who's an African come out and said to the PPP, stop this. So in fact, what I'm saying to you, that while you may see some things as weaknesses, I see them as strengths. The PNC is still a democratic institution when you in comparison to the people. We have to understand. Let the people speak. All that you need to do is to manage it. That's my thoughts. Thank you. Good night, my brother. May we meet again.
You know, Lincoln, before you go, we will meet again. And good questions from Mr. Caesar there. But we got to remind the listeners that the PPP hasn't held, and you're correct, they don't believe in democracy. They're just a bunch of gangsters, hustlers, criminals at Freedom House and office of the president right now. But you know, they haven't had their Congress to elect a leader since 2016. That was the last time they had their Congress. So they have no moral authority to talk about democracy and elections and these things. They are vagabonds and bandits. Just leave on that note.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And keep up the good work. Looking forward to seeing you in the trenches.
Good night.
Good night, Mr. Lewis. Good night, sir.
All right.
All right.
Lincoln, before you go, you celebrated your birthday the other day. Belated happy birthday. Belated birthday greetings to you, sir. Hope
Thank you very much, Mark. And I want to, let me tell you, I had a whale of a time, Mark. My staff at the office, they treated me well. They treated me well. I had a full day with them. You know.
Glad you did. And thanks for all that you do for all of us. You're there on the ground. You're demonstrating what is called bravery. You're going out there, you're standing up. You're not peeping and afraid. You're not peeping, you're out there. Unlike some people who don't do much and say, come on, yeah, I'll come home. Yeah, I'll come home. Anyways, thanks for all that you do, Mr. Lewis. You're a good guy.
My brother.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Mr. Caesar had to laugh. Yeah, I'll come home. Your closing remarks, please, Wayne, before we go, sir.
No, Mark, I thought the show tonight was very, very edifying. We have to continue to educate the people. And, Mr. Lewis, that was a good demonstration of what should happen internally, Mark, within a party. Conflicts, sometimes you can't totally solve them, but to the extent you cannot solve them, you manage them, and you try to keep your business internal and not have your party be like a strainer. Every little thing that happens goes right out into public. you know let's not sit here and feel like if there's not a lot of fights within that PPPC party, but they do a pretty decent job. I'm not going to say a great job, a decent job of keeping their issues in house. And Mark, listen, and with good reason, because it's a pack of thieves, and a pack of thieves would never want to be caught. So of course they're going to make sure that their business is well secure and hidden. But I am still very, very confident, and Mr. Lewis empowered me with his words tonight that this can be done. And I believe and always believe that it can be done. If it could not have been done, I would not have been here, because I don't get into things to lose. Not to say that I don't like losing, but I don't get into things to lose. I am very, 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 Mark, competent that come 2025, we're going to have a regime change in Guyana. I'm happy about it. I'm looking forward to it. It's not going to be easy, Mark. It is going to be an uphill battle. And, one of the things I think we kind of touch on vaguely tonight is the fact that, when these external large countries is trying to get into these small countries to get whatever wealth they want to get out of these countries, they always tend, Mark, to put dictators slash terrorists in charge, man, so that they can get what they want, and the people can just be oppressed and be scared and be living in fear. While that is happening, all our wealth is being extracted from our country. So listen, we got to open our eyes, and I hope that what we're seeing is motivating the people, because Mark, this is going to be impactful. It's going to be so impactful. It's going to be very impactful on families in years to come, because they're losing a lot every day right now in Guyana. The people don't have to live the way they're living in Guyana right now, but they're forced to do so. Why? Because they have the wrong leaders in place. They have an installed government in place that does not care about them. All they care about is business and taking care of their people. So we have to start as a people. And when I say as a people, I don't mean any specific ethnic group. I mean all 6 ethnic groups across Guyana that is fighting for the same cause, which is equality and equal distribution of wealth, across the entire country, and to be treated with respect and dignity as born and bred Guyanese, and not have, people coming from all these other countries. Now, listen, I'm not going to sit down here and criticize, a few Cuban nurses coming in here and there, but when you're going to come in and you're going to be displacing our nurses, born and bred Guyanese, that is looking for work actually, and is being displaced to insert, nurses from another country, I got a problem with that. I got a problem with that. You can't come and take away what belongs to people and give to someone else, Mark. So, my closing remarks, we just got to continue to be strong, continue to be vigilant, continue to be each other's keeper, and this is all going to work out.
Yep. Thank you so much. 27 minutes after 2 o'clock, we've got to go. It's been a long day. We will be back, hopefully, but definitely tomorrow evening on Straight Up 107.1 FM. I have no closing remarks other than thank you so much, Wayne. Thank you so much, Lincoln Lewis. And to all of our listeners, throughout Guyana and wherever else you're listening to us to. We thank you so much. We've got to have real soldiers fight for the people. We've got to. We're seeing lots of those real soldiers missing. We're not seeing it. There's no evidence of that on the ground. And for us to have that change in 2025, we've got to have fighters, real fighters. God bless you all. See you tomorrow. Thank you, Wayne.
Good night, everyone.
Yeah, appreciate it, my friend.
All right.
Yeah. Real fighters. Stop it. Let me get out of here. Love you guys. God bless you.
So, this is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington law firm located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.